Hello guys. Today, what we're going to learn is how to work with a Tindeq Progressor and a monoboard, in this case the 2025 block. But more than anything, I'm going to teach you the modern way to train finger strength. And those are curves, guys. They are curves, okay? They are not kilos, they are not seconds, they are curves, how one sees the work curves in relation to what one is applying in strength. So guys, if you want to know how modern finger strength is worked on today, which is the present and the future, to really understand the load you are pulling, should pull, or should not pull, stay in this video, because this is unique for your finger strength. A hug, guys. Let's start working with T-index, okay? In my case, I am hanging the T-index and the block like this. Why? And that will also be discussed at another time. Right now, I am not pulling like this, and many of my students aren't either. Why? Because they cause back problems. I mean, all these videos of guys lifting 40 kilos, 50 kilos, sooner or later, and this is a matter of experience, end up ruining their backs, especially the lumbar area. Therefore, now I am pulling from above, which can also cause shoulder problems. But obviously, you have to do scapular retraction and pull the right way. I already have my app set up to my T-index. And the other thing you need to do is position the app in such a way that I can see it comfortably. Not on the floor, because if I pull from the floor, I'm pulling with my entire cervical area downwards in a very abnormal way, so to speak. So on one hand, you have to protect your shoulder and also your cervical area. So an anatomical position. But here, what we are focusing on are the curves. So I go to the live data. A short announcement. Finger strength and Tindeq course lasts 5 hours. Finger strength planning course lasts 7 hours. The videos are already recorded, so if you want them, you can buy and watch them immediately. And if you also want to train with me, just write to me on Instagram, whether it's for the Tindeq finger strength courses, finger strength planning, or if you want to train with me. Here, I already explained in another video. Just in case, go check it out. That at the top left are the kilograms. I measure in kilograms. At the top right is the time. At the bottom left are the maximum kilograms I lift at a given moment. And on the bottom right is the average, which I never use. The yellow line at the bottom represents the load in a certain way. So I go here and I can pull. Even though it shows 14 kilograms here, I see the line, how it holds, and the time, whatever it may be. But mainly focus on the yellow line. And that's the load. So I can release and I have no load. I can pull again and have the load again, etc. And why am I telling you that the curves are everything? Because even though I can work just with kilograms, as has always been done, for example, these discs of pulling 20 kilograms or hanging on the edge with weights, and I know I'm pulling, 40 kilograms with each hand, etc. That doesn't mean you're doing your work well. If I tell someone, look, you know what? You have to do a load of 10 kilograms. And this person, look at the line, this person comes and pulls, let's say, 10 kilograms, more or less around there. And I see that the line is even, as I'm doing here. Okay? It means that the load he can handle at 10 kilograms is correct. Okay? He handles it well. He handles it very well. So, in a way, just by looking at the curve, not the number, I know that the person is handling the load they need to handle well, and that it will produce some kind of adaptation, that it won't cause fatigue, and that it will produce what he wants, which is to gain strength. But if I tell that same person or another, let's work with 10 kilograms, and he comes and says, okay, I'm going to pull 10 kilograms. He starts to pull, and I see that the curve starts very slowly because he can't. And when he reaches 10 kilograms, he starts doing this. It becomes like a saw that goes up and down, but still, if you look at the number above, it's still doing between 10 and 12, 10 and 12, but it goes down and can't handle it. And this means by looking at that curve, just by looking at the curve without the number. Because if I only see the number, he's doing it, but if I see the curve, it means he's doing it wrong, that he barely handles that load, that he's probably close to his 90 or even 100% because of this thing of going up and down, because he can't handle the load. And in that case, I don't focus on the kilograms. I don't focus on the number, but I focus on the curve. And that's a good way to know if this climber is really producing adaptation or not, just by looking at the curve. Similarly, there are situations where I tell them, for example, they have to do maximum finger strength, and it's not the same. When they record, it's not the same to do this. When I tell them, reach 20 kilograms there, it's not the same to do this. And immediately reach 20 kilograms when I tell them, now go up to 20, as it is to do this. And they managed to reach 20 kilos, but it was very difficult for them. That curve is also a curve that one understands. The guy who reached 20 kilos in the first instance, who increased very quickly, not only has finger strength, but also probably has a high RFD because he did it very quickly. Now, obviously, that will depend on how much the load will be. Because if someone has a maximum strength of 50 and I tell them reach 20, they will be able to get there very quickly. In general, those curves are mainly useful for reaching the loads that correspond to maximum strength work. And the curves are everything. For example, if I go to endurance, and I don't know a curve here, which is Hill's curve. I told him to do a task for me, I don't know, of maximum strength or whatever. And we see that the first curve, the one here, he did it very well. The second was already dropping. The third was dropping. The fourth definitely dropped. And the last one did something very jagged. So if I only looked at the numbers, just the numbers, right? If I only looked at the numbers of each of these measures, I could say, hey, this person reached what they had to reach, which in this case was like 10 kilos. They all reached 10 kilos. But definitely, his first attempt was not the same as his second attempt compared to his third, his fourth, and finally, the last, his fifth attempt. So he reached the tar. He reached the kilos he had to reach. Yes, he did. Did he do it as he was supposed to? No, he didn't. And how do I know that? Looking at curves, okay? Therefore, guys, you have to be very careful with the curves because the curves tell you in a certain way how the muscle is inside, how my nervous system is really sending the signals or not. I can also see a person's work with the curves. It's going to be the same as the example, but we're going to do it live and direct. I said endurance, new session. I'm going to set it here to infinite minutes so it doesn't stop. I'm going to set it to start immediately at 1 second. And I'm going to set a what's it called? A work zone. In this case, I'm going to set it to, I don't know, 50. No, I'm going to set it to 50, okay? And I say, work between 10 and 15%. No, between, yes, no, between 10 and 20% of 50, okay? I start the session and this will give me a range. So now I tell the guy, okay, you have to fall within the range. So he goes and falls within the range without any problem. And he lets go. I say to him, let's see, hit the range again. And he comes and does this. And he maintains it, but he falls, but he maintains it. He falls, he maintains it, he falls, and then he stops doing the work. Or maybe I come, and this guy is a bit stronger. He comes and does this. or the guy can barely do it. And I can record this. I record it. I hit save. I put what I'm going to put baby to make it quick. Save. And here is baby, and I can see his work. And here I can see all the curves, and I can analyze each one of these curves. I can say, for example, that the first curve was a load that arrived very quickly, which it managed to withstand more or less well, and then dropped. The second curve could be, look, it arrived, but it had a tendency not to withstand the load well, but it was, in fact, they are going to, in a certain way, also in the load. The third one could be, look, this one reached the load, but it is so strong that it reached the top part of the load, okay? And it maintained it more or less well. And the last one, well, I can say, look, it struggled a lot to reach the load. It managed to reach the load occasionally, but very poorly, and so on, okay? And this and these I can move up to see them better. And here I am not relying on numbers. I am relying on how I see the curve. It is true that in a certain way I can arrive, and when I do the loads, I provide numbers. For example, let's do a load of 10 seconds between, for instance, 25 and 30 kilos. I provide the kilos, but then the person who trains or is training with me has to look at the curves, and then they have to record this, send it to me, and I have to not only know that they are handling the load in kilos that I gave them, but I also have to see their curves to know if the work is being done correctly or not. There's a lot to say about this. The curves will appear in live data, they will appear in endurance, they will appear in RFE, they will appear in critical force, in all the different parts of the Tindeq Progress. You will find different curves. And each one can be analyzed based on what you are working on, whether it's strength, whether it's curves for maximum strength, whether it's curves for endurance strength, etc., etc. We can talk much more about this in each of the contributions. That is, how to work on maximum strength, how to work on endurance strength, how RFE is measured, whether the repeater was worked well or not, whether the load in maximum strength was worked well, etc. But that is determined by how I see the curves of the finger strength work, so that the person does what they need to do and to ensure that the load they are assigned is correct and not an overload or underload or anything else, okay? And that's it for now. This is the modern toy, and that's why Tindeq is what it needs to be, because it measures a curve, not a scale. There's nothing that measures just a number, but it measures a curve, how the force is being exerted over time. And this is modern training, okay? So guys, we're going to talk a lot about this. We are going to talk about the curve in maximum strength, the curve in strength endurance, the curve in RFE, the curve in critical force, the curve in repeater, in everything. In everything, we are going to see the curve and how the work and load should be each time you use Tindeq with a monkey, in this case from block 2025. So guys, if you liked it, please give a like, it helps me a lot. Subscribe if you haven't done so. How could you not? Especially if you want to build finger strength. And that's it for today. A hug. Bye-bye.